Welcome to our review on how to classify. First thing we need to understand then is what we mean when we refer to the term species. So they quite like this question on your exam paper, and normally you're going to get 2 marks for it. So when we're talking about a species, we're talking about a group of similar organisms which are capable of interbreeding, and that'll be your first mark there. And the second one is for saying that they produce fertile offspring. So remember that definition for the 2 marks. 1 mark for saying that they can interbreed, second one for saying that the offspring will be fertile. Now, every species that is present on Earth actually has a 2-part name, which is its binomial name. So what we find is that 2-part name is made up of the genus and then the species. So the genus always gets a capital letter, species always a lowercase letter, and you should either write it in italics or underline it technically. Now, what we find is the reason behind this is to make sure that we have the same name being used all over the world. Obviously, people speak different languages in different countries, and by having this binomial system of naming organisms, they all have the exact same 2-part name, no matter whether you're speaking French, German, English, Italian, it makes no difference, the name stays the same. Now, if we consider an individual species, what we see is there is variation within that species. So, although they do show this variation, they still have more features in common with each other than with another species. So that's why they're still within that one species, if you like. Now, what we do also see is that they've got an evolutionary link because they share a common ancestor. If we consider closely related species that live in different habitats, then I've given you 2 examples here. We've got the Arctic fox on the left and the fennec fox on the right. The Arctic fox obviously lives in, as the name suggests, Arctic type conditions, nice and cold, etc. And the fennec fox, as you can see from the picture, lives in these warmer desert-like conditions. So, what we can see is that even though these 2 species are closely related, they look quite different to one another, and that's all down to the fact that they have this variation to suit the habitat that they exist in. What we find then is if we've got 2 species that are closely related, then they tend to share more characteristics with one another. And the whole reason behind this is because they both had a common ancestor quite closely in their past. And a good example of this are chimpanzees and humans. So both chimpanzees and us as humans share a common ancestor in our recent past. And what we actually find is that we'll be analysing all of these different characteristics to work out how closely related different species actually are, and to build their family trees, if you like. And what we find is that the more characteristics we analyse, the more accurate the family tree model will become. And what we now do, because we've got technology that can do a lot of this for us, computers will analyse lots of these characteristics.